They found my Bible at 3 in the morning. I remember the sound of boots on marble, sharp, violent clicks that shattered the silence of our palace wing. My father's voice echoed through the corridors like thunder before a sandstorm. "Bring her to me." 4 words. That's all it took for my world to end. I'm sitting here now, thousands of miles away from that night, and my hands are still shaking. If you're watching this, I need you to understand something. I was supposed to die. The executioner was already chosen. The date was set. My own father, the man who once carried me on his shoulders through the gardens of our estate, signed the order himself. But I'm alive. And what happened in the 10 years between that moment and this one, it defies every law of nature, every rule of the kingdom, every explanation that makes sense to the rational mind. Let me take you back. Back before the dungeon. Before the chains cut into my wrists so deep I can still see the scars. Back to when I was just a girl in a golden cage, and I didn't even know I was trapped. My name. I can't tell you my real name. Not yet. Not while my sisters are still there. But you can call me Aisha. In Arabic, it means alive. The irony isn't lost on me. I was born into one of the wealthiest families in Saudi Arabia. My father is a prince. Not the kind you read about in fairy tales. The kind who controls oil fields that stretch farther than your eye can see. The kind whose signature can disappear a person. Whose word is law. Whose anger is a death sentence. Our palace in Riyadh had 63 rooms. I counted them as a child, my bare feet padding across floors made of Italian marble so perfectly polished I could see my reflection. Cold. Always cold, no matter how hot the desert sun burned outside. My mother used to say it was because we had the best air conditioning money could buy. But even as a little girl, I knew the truth. The coldness came from something else. Something money couldn't fix. I had everything a princess could want. Closets filled with designer abayas from Paris, each one costing more than most people make in a year. Diamonds that sat heavy on my neck during royal functions. Private tutors who taught me 5 languages. A driver who took me anywhere within the compound walls. Anything I desired, I received. Except freedom. Except choice. Except love. The call to prayer would echo 5 times a day through speakers hidden in every corner of our home. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. God is greater. God is greater. I would kneel on my prayer rug, Turkish silk, hand embroidered with gold thread, and press my forehead to the floor. The ritual was so familiar I could do it in my sleep. Sometimes I was half asleep, just going through the motions. Ya Allah, I would whisper. Make me a good daughter. Make me obedient. Make me worthy. I never asked him to make me free. I didn't know I could be. My father's eyes were the first thing I learned to fear. Not because they were cruel, cruelty would have been almost human. No, his eyes were empty. Black as crude oil and just as opaque. When he looked at me, I felt like a commodity. An asset to be managed. A tool to be used for political alliances and family advancement. You are a daughter of the royal family, he told me when I turned 13. We were in his study, surrounded by ancient Qurans and business contracts, the smell of oud incense so thick it made my eyes water. Your body is not yours. Your choices are not yours. Your life is not yours. Everything you are belongs to Allah and to this family. Do you understand? Yes, Baba, I whispered. My voice was so small. I was so small. Good. Because the alternative to obedience is shame. And I will not tolerate shame. The way he said that last word, it rattled in my chest like a death rattle. I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. We lived in the same palace, ate meals at the same long table, existed in the same air-conditioned coldness. But we were strangers. My mother was a ghost who floated through the halls in black abaya, her eyes permanently swollen from crying into silk pillows. My brothers were carbon copies of my father, learning early that power meant cruelty, and mercy was weakness. But my youngest sister, Fatima, she was only 7 when the first crack appeared in my perfect facade. She had found a bird with a broken wing in the garden. She brought it to me, her small hands cupped around it so gently, tears streaming down her face. Aisha, can you fix it? Can you make it fly again? I looked at that bird, helpless, trapped, wings useless, and something inside me broke. No, Habibti, I whispered. Some cages we can't escape. I didn't know then that I was talking about myself. I was 19 when I first felt the stirring. The question that would eventually destroy my life and save my soul, is this all there is? The prayers felt hollow. The rituals felt empty. I was performing a religion, not experiencing a God. And late at night, when the palace finally fell silent and even the servants stopped moving through the corridors, I would stand at my window, 12 stories up, iron bars decoratively disguised as geometric patterns, and stare at the stars. Is anyone out there? I would whisper. Does anyone see me? The stars never answered. Allah never answered. The silence was absolute. But something was coming. Something that would shatter everything I knew. Someone was already watching. Already answering. Already preparing to invade my perfect prison with a truth so dangerous, so forbidden, that it would cost me everything. I just didn't know it yet. The first crack came on a Tuesday. Such an ordinary day to mark the beginning of the end. My father called me to his study exactly 1 week after my 21st birthday. I knew something was wrong the moment the servant knocked on my door. It was 2 p.m., the time my father usually conducted business meetings with oil executives and government ministers. He never summoned us during business hours. We were to remain invisible during the day, ornamental at night. Your father requests your presence immediately, the servant said, his eyes fixed on the floor. He wouldn't look at me. That's when the fear started crawling up my spine like ice water. I wrapped my black abaya tighter around my body and followed him through the corridors. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The palace suddenly felt different, the cold marble felt colder, the silence felt heavier, like the building itself was holding its breath. When I entered my father's study, he was standing with his back to me, staring out the window at the sprawling gardens below. The afternoon sun cast his shadow long across the Persian rug. He didn't turn around. Sit, he commanded. I sat in the chair across from his massive mahogany desk. My hands were trembling, so I clasped them together in my lap. The smell of oud incense was suffocating. I wanted to cough but didn't dare make a sound. The silence stretched. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5. This was one of his tactics, letting the fear build until you were ready to confess sins you hadn't even committed. Finally, he turned. His face was carved from stone. Those dead, black eyes fixed on me like a predator sizing up prey. "I have made an arrangement," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was discussing a business transaction. "You will be married in 3 months." The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe. Married? But Baba, You will not speak unless I give you permission. His voice never rose. It didn't need to. The threat was in every syllable. I closed my mouth. My whole body started shaking. "Sheikh Mohammed al-Rashid has requested your hand. He is 63 years old. A respected religious leader. Very devout. Very traditional." The way he said that last word made my blood run cold. "He already has 3 wives, but he has chosen you to be his 4th. This alliance will strengthen our family's position in the religious community. It is an honor. An honor. I was going to be sold to a man older than my father. A man who already had 3 wives, which meant I knew exactly what kind of life awaited me. I would be property. A breeding tool. A servant in expensive clothes. "Baba, please," my voice cracked. Tears were already spilling down my face. "Please don't do this. I'm begging you." His hand slammed down on the desk with such force that a glass paperweight jumped. I flinched, pressing back into the chair. "You dare question me?" Now his voice rose. Now I saw the monster behind the mask. "You ungrateful, worthless girl. Do you know what you cost me? Your mother gave me 4 daughters before she finally produced sons. For useless mouths to feed. For embarrassments to marry off. And you," he stepped closer, and I could smell the cardamom from his coffee on his breath. "You have been nothing but a burden since the day you were born." I was sobbing now, my whole body shaking. "I'll be good, Baba. I'll do anything else. Please just." "There is nothing else. This is your purpose. This is why Allah made women, to obey, to serve, to bear children. Sheikh Mohammed is being generous by taking you. You should be on your knees thanking Allah for this mercy." Mercy. The word was poison. "You will meet him next week. You will be respectful, modest, and silent unless spoken to. You will smile. You will accept. And in 3 months, you will go to his home and you will fulfill your duty. Do you understand?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My entire future had just been decided in 5 minutes, and I had no say. No voice. No choice. I said, "Do you understand?" He was shouting now, his face inches from mine. "Yes, Baba." The words came out in a whisper. "A surrender." "Good. Now get out of my sight." I stumbled out of his study, barely able to see through my tears. I made it to my room, locked the door, and collapsed on the floor. The sobs came from somewhere so deep inside me I didn't know that depth existed. I pressed my face into the carpet, another Turkish silk, another symbol of wealth that meant absolutely nothing, and I wanted to die. I was 19 when I first questioned. I was 21 when I learned the price of being born female in my world. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Sheikh Mohammed al-Rashid's face in my mind. I'd seen him at religious gatherings, standing at the front with the other imams. Long gray beard. Cold eyes. Hands that gestured violently when he preached about women's disobedience and the fires of hell. I had heard stories about his wives. Whispers from servants, quickly silenced. One of them had tried to run away. They found her 3 days later. She didn't run again. I went to my mother's room at midnight, desperate for, I don't know what. Comfort? Alliance? Someone to tell me this wasn't happening? She was sitting at her vanity, removing her jewelry. When she saw my reflection in the mirror, her face was blank. "Ummi," I whispered. "Did you know about the marriage?" She didn't turn around. Just kept removing her rings, one by one. "Yes." "And you said nothing? You didn't try to stop him?" Now she turned, and I saw something in her eyes that terrified me more than my father's rage: resignation. Complete, total, soul-dead resignation. Stop him? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Aisha, I am 42 years old. I have been married to your father for 26 years. In that time, I have learned one truth: women do not stop men. We survive them. If we're lucky. But I'm your daughter. And he is your father. A prince. A man with power that extends beyond these walls. What do you think I am? What power do you think I have?" She stood up, and I saw how small she was. How bent. Like life had been slowly crushing her for decades. "You will marry Sheikh Mohammed. You will do your duty. You will survive. That is what we do. That's not life, Ummi. That's death." She slapped me. Not hard, but the shock of it froze me in place. "Death?" Her voice was harsh, cracked. "You want to know what death is? Death is disobedience. Death is bringing shame to this family. Death is..." She stopped, and for a moment I saw real fear flash across her face. "Just obey, Aisha. Please. I cannot lose another daughter." "Another daughter? What do you mean, another? Get out." She turned away. "Go to your room. Pray to Allah for an obedient heart. And never speak of this again." I left, my mind reeling. Another daughter? I had 3 sisters, Fatima, Layla, and Maryam. Who was she talking about? Back in my room, I did something I hadn't done since I was a child. I pulled out the drawer in my bedside table where I kept my private things, my journal, some photographs, a dried rose from the garden. And there, at the very back, I found it. A photograph. Faded, creased, hidden. 5 girls standing together in the garden. My sisters. And one more. Older than me by maybe 2 years. Beautiful, with my mother's eyes and a smile that looked almost rebellious. I had found this photograph years ago, hidden in my mother's room. When I asked about the 5th girl, my mother had gone pale and said, "She's dead. Never speak of her again." And I, being a child, had obeyed. But now, staring at that forbidden face, I wondered, did she die? Or did she disobey? What happened to the daughters who said no? I went to my prayer rug that night, force of habit, force of fear, and I prostrated myself on the floor. But for the first time in my life, I didn't recite the memorized prayers. Instead, I spoke from the raw, bleeding place inside my chest. Allah, if you're there, if you're real, please help me. I can't do this. I can't marry him. I would rather die. If you have any mercy, any power, any love, show me. Please. I'm begging you. Show me a way out. The silence was deafening. I pressed my forehead harder against the rug, my tears soaking into the silk. Please. I was screaming now, not caring if anyone heard. I've been faithful. I've obeyed. I've prayed 5 times a day since I was 6 years old. Where are you? Nothing. Emptiness. A void where God should be. I don't know how long I stayed there, crumpled, broken, begging a silent heaven. But when I finally lifted my head, something inside me had shifted. A small crack in the foundation of everything I'd been taught. If Allah wouldn't save me, maybe I had to save myself. I just had no idea how. The week before I was scheduled to meet Sheikh Mohammed, my father's security increased around the palace. More guards. More cameras. The windows in my room, already barred, were checked and reinforced. My internet access was restricted to monitored devices only. My phone was taken away. I was being prepared for marriage the same way you'd prepare a prisoner for permanent incarceration. Because that's exactly what it was. I had 67 days until my wedding. 67 days until my life ended. And the only God I knew how to pray to wasn't listening. I had no idea that someone else was. Someone who had been watching me, waiting for me, preparing to reach into my prison with hands that bore the scars of nails. Someone I had been taught to hate my entire life was about to become the only one who could save me. 67 days became 60. 60 became 50. And with each day that passed, I felt myself disappearing. Have you ever watched yourself die while your heart was still beating? That's what those weeks were like. I would catch my reflection in the mirrors that lined our palace halls, those expensive, gold-framed mirrors that were supposed to show beauty and wealth, and I wouldn't recognize the girl staring back at me. Her eyes were hollow. Her skin was pale despite the desert sun. She looked like a ghost haunting her own life. I doubled down on my prayers. If Allah was silent, maybe it was because I wasn't faithful enough. Maybe I hadn't suffered enough. Maybe I hadn't surrendered enough. I started waking up at 4 a.m. for tahajjud, the pre-dawn voluntary prayers that were supposed to be the most powerful, the most heard by Allah. The palace was so quiet at that hour you could hear your own heartbeat. I would perform wudu in my bathroom, the ritual washing, water so cold it made my fingers ache. Then I would stand on my prayer rug, raise my hands to my ears, and begin. Allahu Akbar. I would recite the Quran in Arabic, words I'd memorized as a child, words that were supposed to be powerful and holy and transformative. I would prostrate myself, forehead to the ground, whispering the same desperate prayers over and over. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, O God, O most gracious, O most merciful, please hear me. Please answer me. Please save me from this marriage. I am your servant. I have been faithful. Please. The carpet would be wet with my tears by the time I finished. My knees would ache from kneeling. My voice would be hoarse from whispered begging. And every single morning, I was met with the same suffocating silence. Nothing. No peace. No sign. No intervention. Just the cold emptiness of unanswered prayer echoing back at me. I increased my fasting. Not just Ramadan, I started fasting Mondays and Thursdays, the Sunnah fasts that Prophet Muhammad supposedly did. My stomach would cramp with hunger. My head would pound. I would feel dizzy during the day, but I pushed through because I'd been taught that suffering pleased Allah. That denial of the flesh made you more spiritual, more worthy of answered prayers. I memorized more Quran. I already knew several chapters by heart, but I started working on longer ones. Surah Yasin. Surah Al-Kahf. My tongue would stumble over the Arabic words until I got them perfect. I would recite them during my prayers, desperately hoping that maybe the right combination of words would unlock heaven's door. But heaven stayed closed. My mother found me one morning after far prayer. I had been prostrate for so long that my legs had gone numb. I couldn't stand up. She helped me to my bed, her face tight with something between pity and fear. "Aisha, what are you doing to yourself?" she whispered. "Praying," I said. My voice sounded strange. Disconnected. "I'm praying for Allah to help me." She looked away. Sometimes Allah's help looks like acceptance. You mean surrender. I mean survival. But I didn't want to survive. I wanted to live. And I was beginning to realize there was a difference. 37 days until the wedding. I met Sheikh Mohammed al-Rashid for the first time in our formal sitting room, the one reserved for important guests and business dealings. I was dressed in my finest abaya, black with intricate silver embroidery. My hijab was pinned perfectly. My face was the only thing visible, and even that felt like too much exposure under his gaze. He sat across from me, my father beside him, another imam as a witness. I kept my eyes down, as I'd been taught. Modest. Obedient. Silent. "Look up, girl," Sheikh Mohammed commanded. "Let me see what I'm purchasing." Purchasing. Not marrying. Purchasing. I lifted my eyes. His face was exactly as terrifying as I remembered. Leathery skin from decades in the sun. A beard dyed with henna to hide the gray. And his eyes, small, dark, calculating. The eyes of a man who had never once considered that a woman might be fully human. "She is thin," he observed, like I wasn't in the room. "Will she be able to bear children?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "She is healthy. The doctors have confirmed. I have had 3 wives, and between them only 5 children. 4 daughters." He said daughters like a curse word. "I need sons. Strong sons. If she cannot provide this, the marriage contract will include provisions for." "She will provide," my father interrupted. His voice was tight. Ashamed. I realized in that moment that he was afraid of this man too. "She comes from good bloodline. My wife bore me 2 sons." After 4 daughters, Sheikh Mohammed observed. A slight smile played at his lips. He was enjoying this. enjoying the power, enjoying watching my father squirm. May I speak? I heard my own voice say. I hadn't planned it. The words just came out. Both men turned to stare at me like a piece of furniture had started talking. No, my father said. You may not. I just wanted to ask. I pushed forward, my heart hammering. This was insane. This was dangerous. But I had to know. Your other wives. Are they happy? The silence that followed was so heavy I could barely breathe under the weight of it. Sheikh Mohammed leaned forward. Happy? He said the word like it was foreign. A woman's happiness is found in obedience to her husband and submission to Allah's will. My wives are blessed to serve in my household. They want for nothing. Except freedom, I whispered. My father's hand cracked across my face so fast I didn't see it coming. The force of it knocked me sideways in my chair. My cheek exploded in hot pain. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I'd bitten my tongue. You will be silent, he roared. His face was red. A vein pulsed in his temple. He turned to Sheikh Mohammed, his voice desperate, apologetic. Forgive her. She is young. Foolish. She will be properly trained before the wedding. I assure you. She has fire, Sheikh Mohammed observed. He didn't look angry. He looked pleased. Like he'd just discovered a challenge he was eager to break. Good. I prefer to do the training myself. It is more satisfying when they learn through experience. The way he said that made my skin crawl. I understood in that moment what my life would be. The breaking. The training. The systematic destruction of everything I was until only an obedient shell remained. I was dismissed. I left the room with blood in my mouth and terror in my soul. 29 days. I stopped eating. Not fasting for spiritual reasons, I just couldn't keep food down. My body was rejecting reality. I would sit at the family meals, pushing rice around my plate while my father glared at me and my mother looked away. You're going to make yourself ugly, my father said one night. And I will not have you embarrass this family by looking sick at your wedding. Eat. I forced down 3 bites and then ran to my bathroom to vomit. The nightmares started around this time. I would dream I was drowning in black fabric, layers and layers of abaya wrapping around my face until I couldn't breathe. I would wake up gasping, tangled in my sheets, my room pitch black except for the digital clock that counted down the days. 29. 28. 27. I prayed the Istikhara prayer, the prayer for guidance when making a big decision. It's a special prayer you do before sleeping, asking Allah to guide you toward what's right and away from what's wrong. To give you a sign. Ya Allah, I whispered in the darkness, if this marriage is good for me, make it easy and bless it. If it is bad for me, turn it away and turn me away from it. Show me the truth. That night I dreamed I was in a cage. A golden cage, beautiful and ornate, hanging in the center of a vast emptiness. I was screaming, rattling the bars, but no sound came out. And far below me, I could see a door. A way out. But the cage was rising higher and higher, and the door was getting further and further away. I woke up more terrified than ever. Was that Allah's answer? Was this marriage the cage? Or was the cage my current life, and marriage was simply a different prison? I didn't know. Allah wasn't clear. He never was. I started having conversations with him that were less like prayers and more like arguments. Why did you make me a woman? I would demand, pacing my room in the middle of the night. Why did you create me with thoughts and dreams and desires if the only purpose of my existence is to be property? Why give me a mind if I'm not allowed to use it? Why give me a heart if I'm not allowed to follow it? Silence. The Quran says you are merciful. You are called Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate. So where is your compassion for me? Where is your mercy? I'm drowning, and you're watching, and you're doing nothing. Silence. I've done everything right. I've prayed. I've fasted. I've obeyed. I've covered myself. I've memorized your words. I've been a good Muslim. A good daughter. And for what? So you could let me be sold to a monster? So you could watch while my life is destroyed? Silence. Always silence. I would collapse on my prayer rug, exhausted, empty, more alone than I'd ever been. And in those moments, a dangerous thought would creep into my mind. What if he's not silent? What if he's just not there? I would push the thought away immediately, terrified. That was Shaitan, Satan, whispering doubts. That was the path to hell. You don't question Allah. You don't doubt. Doubt is the ultimate sin. But the thought kept coming back. Stronger each time. 14 days. 2 weeks until my wedding. 2 weeks until the end. I was sitting in the library, a room I rarely visited because most of the books were either Islamic texts or business journals that belonged to my father. But I was desperate for distraction, for anything to occupy my mind. I was scanning the shelves when my eyes landed on something strange. A book that didn't belong. It was tucked behind a row of hadith collections, almost invisible unless you were looking at just the right angle. The cover was plain. Dark blue. No Arabic script. No title visible from the spine. My heart started racing before I even knew why. I looked around, the library was empty. The door was closed. The cameras in this room had been broken for months, my brother had thrown a book at one during an argument, and my father had never bothered to fix them. I reached for the book. The moment my fingers touched it, I felt something like an electric shock. Not painful, just significant. Like this moment mattered. Like invisible hands were guiding mine. I pulled it out from behind the other books and turned it over. My blood went cold. There, embossed in gold letters on the front, Holy Bible. I dropped it like it was on fire. It hit the carpet with a muffled thud. I stared at it lying there, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. A Bible. In my father's library. In our Islamic palace. A book I'd been taught was corrupted, false, dangerous. A book that could get someone killed for owning it in Saudi Arabia. Who put it there? Why? How long had it been there? I should have left it. I should have walked away. Should have told my father. Should have burned it. Instead, I picked it up. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I opened to a random page, and my eyes fell on words written in Arabic translation. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I read it again. And again. And again. Come to me. Not obey me. Not fear me. Not prostrate before me 5 times a day and hope I'm listening. Come to me. All who are weary. That was me. I was so weary. So tired. So burdened. And I will give you rest. Rest. Not more rules. Not more rituals. Not more suffering to prove worthiness. Rest. I slammed the book shut and shoved it back behind the other books. I practically ran out of the library, my whole body shaking. I locked myself in my room and tried to pray, tried to cleanse myself from the contamination of touching that forbidden book. But I couldn't stop thinking about those words. Come to me, and I will give you rest. Who was speaking? Who was offering rest? I had been taught my entire life that Jesus was just a prophet. Isa. A good man who pointed people to Allah but nothing more. We Muslims honored him, but we didn't worship him. That would be shirk, the unforgivable sin of associating partners with Allah. But something about those words felt different from anything I'd ever read in the Quran. They felt personal. Intimate. Like an invitation rather than a command. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the Bible hidden in the library. About those words that promised rest. About the desperation in my chest that was growing every day. 12 days until my wedding. And Allah was still silent. But what if someone else was trying to speak? I stayed away from the library for 3 days. 3 days of trying to forget those words. 3 days of praying harder, fasting longer, begging Allah to remove the temptation. I was terrified of what that book represented. In Saudi Arabia, converting from Islam is apostasy, punishable by death. Even possessing a Bible could bring severe punishment. And in my family? My father would kill me himself before allowing such shame. But the words haunted me. Come to me, and I will give you rest. On the 4th night, I couldn't resist anymore. I waited until 2 a.m., the deadest hour, when even the guards were drowsy at their posts. I crept through the dark corridors of the palace, my bare feet silent on the cold marble. Every shadow made my heart jump. Every distant sound made me freeze. The library door creaked when I opened it. I slipped inside and closed it quietly behind me, standing in the darkness, listening. Nothing. Just the sound of my own frantic breathing. I didn't turn on the lights. Too risky. Instead, I used my phone's flashlight, keeping it dim, pointing it at the floor. I made my way to the shelf where I'd found the Bible, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. There it was. Still hidden behind the Islamic texts. Still waiting. I pulled it out and sat on the floor in the corner, the darkest part of the library where the cameras, if they had been working, wouldn't have caught me. I opened the book, and the pages fell open to a different section. My eyes landed on words that made my breath catch. The truth will set you free. Free. That word. That impossible, desperate, forbidden word. I started reading. I didn't know where I was in the book. I found out later it was the Gospel of John, chapter 8. But in that moment, crouched in the darkness, I was just a drowning girl reaching for anything that looked like air. The words were strange. Different from the Quran. The Quran was poetic, rhythmic, meant to be recited and memorized. These words were conversational. Like someone was telling me a story. Like someone was talking to me, not at me. I read about Jesus talking to religious leaders, men who were so caught up in rules and laws that they'd forgotten about mercy. Men who wanted to stone a woman caught in adultery. And Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." I stopped breathing. Read it again. In my world, women were stoned for dishonoring their families. For disobedience. For shaming the family name. I'd heard whispers of honor killings, girls who disappeared, their deaths explained away as accidents or illnesses. My missing sister whose photograph I'd found, had she been one of those stones? But this Jesus, he stopped them. He defended her. He told the religious men that they had no right to judge. And then, this part made tears spring to my eyes, he told the woman, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." No condemnation. Just grace. Freedom. A second chance. I had never heard anything like it in my life. I kept reading, page after page, losing track of time. I read about Jesus touching lepers, the untouchables that everyone avoided. I read about him eating with prostitutes and tax collectors, the people society had labeled as trash. I read about him talking to a Samaritan woman, breaking every social rule by speaking to a woman in public, a foreign woman, a woman with a questionable past. And he didn't condemn her either. He offered her living water, something that would satisfy her soul forever. My cheeks were wet. I was crying and didn't even realize it. This Jesus, he was nothing like what I'd been taught. We were told he was a prophet like Muhammad, a man who brought laws and rules and judgment. But this Jesus seemed to care more about people than rules. More about hearts than rituals. More about freedom than control. I found another passage, and this one hit me like a physical blow. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. I read it 3 times. 4 times. 5. God loved the world? Not just Muslims. Not just the obedient. Not just the worthy. The world? And whoever believes, whoever. Not just men. Not just Arabs. Not just the chosen few. Whoever. Could that include me? A Saudi princess trapped in a golden cage? A girl who'd been told her entire life that her only value was her obedience and her womb? I heard footsteps in the corridor outside. My heart stopped. I shoved the Bible back behind the books, turned off my phone, and pressed myself into the corner. The footsteps passed. A guard making his rounds. I waited 5 minutes, then slipped out of the library and ran back to my room. 9 days until my wedding. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd read. It was like a seed had been planted in my mind, and it was growing, sending roots deep into soil I didn't know existed inside me. During the day, I played the role. The obedient daughter. The modest bride-to-be. I attended the wedding planning meetings with my mother and the Sheikh's other wives, 3 women with dead eyes who spoke in whispers and flinched when spoken to. I nodded when the wedding coordinator showed me dress options, all appropriately modest, all suffocating. I remained silent when my father discussed the marriage contract with lawyers, negotiating my worth like I was livestock. But at night, I returned to the library. Always at 2 a.m. Always in the darkness. Always terrified and hungry and desperate. I started at the beginning, the Gospel of Matthew. I read about Jesus being born in a stable, not a palace. About him growing up as a carpenter's son, not a prince. About him choosing fishermen and tax collectors as his followers, not religious scholars and political leaders. Everything about him was upside down from my world. I read the Sermon on the Mount, and the words cut through every religious teaching I'd ever received. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. The poor, the mourning, the meek. These were blessed. In my world, the blessed were the powerful, the wealthy, the strong. The ones who controlled others. The ones who made people afraid. But Jesus was saying the opposite. He was saying the broken people, people like me, were the ones who would inherit everything. I read about Jesus healing people. Not because they earned it. Not because they were righteous enough. Just because they asked. Just because they believed he could. One story destroyed me completely. A woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years, which meant she'd been considered unclean for 12 years. Untouchable. Outcast. Ashamed. She pushed through a crowd just to touch the edge of Jesus's robe, believing that even that small contact would heal her. And it did. Jesus stopped, turned, called her daughter, and told her, "Your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Daughter. He called her daughter. Not slave. Not servant. Not property. Daughter. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. When had my father ever called me daughter with love? When had anyone in my life ever looked at me and seen a person worth healing? Worth knowing? Worth saving? 6 days until my wedding. I was reading in the library when I came across the crucifixion story. I'd heard about it before in Islamic teaching. We believed that Jesus didn't actually die on the cross, that Allah substituted someone else at the last minute because Jesus was too important to die that way. But this account said something different. It said Jesus chose to die. That he could have called down angels to save him, but he didn't. That he went to the cross willingly, taking on himself the punishment for everyone else's sins. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," he said while being tortured to death. Forgive them. Even while dying. Even while being mocked and beaten and crucified. What kind of God does that? Allah was described as merciful, but also as a judge who kept a record of every sin, every mistake, every failure. Paradise was earned through good deeds outweighing bad deeds. You spent your whole life terrified that your scale would tip the wrong way. But this Jesus, he didn't ask people to earn anything. He just said, "Believe. Follow me. I've already paid the price." I found a verse in one of the letters, Romans, I think, that said, "While we were still sinners, Christ died for us." While we were still sinners. Not after we cleaned ourselves up. Not after we proved we were worthy. While we were still broken and dirty and lost. He loved us enough to die for us even when we didn't deserve it. I couldn't breathe. This was so different from everything I'd been taught. So radical. So dangerous. So beautiful. 3 days until my wedding. The final dress fitting. The final legal signatures. The final preparations for my execution disguised as a celebration. I was going through the motions like a robot. My mother kept asking if I was okay. I would nod and smile and say, "Yes, Ummi. I'm just nervous." Nervous. What an absurdly inadequate word for the war being fought inside my soul. At night, I was reading the book of Acts, about the first followers of Jesus after he rose from the dead. He rose from the dead. That part still made my brain short-circuit. I read about people being so transformed by encountering Jesus that they were willing to die for him. To be imprisoned. To be beaten. To lose everything. And they counted it as joy. They called it an honor. Because what they'd found in Jesus was worth more than comfort, more than safety, more than life itself. I read about a man named Paul who'd been a religious zealot, like the imams I knew, like Sheikh Muhammad, like my father. He'd hunted down followers of Jesus and had them killed. But then Jesus appeared to him in a blinding light and said, "Why are you persecuting me?" And Paul's entire life changed. He went from being a persecutor to being persecuted. From being powerful to being powerless. From being respected to being despised. And he wrote, "I consider everything a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord." Everything a loss. But worth it. Because knowing Jesus was worth more than everything else combined. I closed the Bible and sat in the darkness, my mind spinning. Could this be real? Could this Jesus, this man who died 2,000 years ago, could he actually be who he said he was? God in human form? The way, the truth, and the life? Everything in my Muslim upbringing screamed that this was blasphemy. Shirk. The unforgivable sin. Claiming God had a son, claiming Jesus was divine, this was the lie Christians believed that guaranteed them hellfire. But what if it wasn't a lie? What if everything I'd been taught was the lie? I had prayed to Allah for months. Begged him. Fasted and memorized and prostrated myself until my body ached. And I'd gotten nothing but silence. But this Jesus, in 1 week of reading his words, I'd felt more heard, more seen, more loved than in 21 years of Islamic practice. 2 days until my wedding. I was sitting at dinner with my family, the final pre-wedding meal. My father was in a good mood for once, discussing the business opportunities this marriage would bring. My brothers were laughing about something. My mother was silent, as always. My younger sisters were excited about being bridesmaids. And I was sitting there, pushing food around my plate, thinking about a verse I'd read earlier. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? I looked around the table. At the wealth. The power. The prestige. The palace with 63 rooms. The servants. The luxury. The life that millions of people would envy. And I realized, I would trade every bit of it for what those early Christians had. For what that bleeding woman had when Jesus called her daughter. For what Paul had when he counted everything as loss. I would trade this entire golden prison for one moment of genuine love. Real freedom. true peace, for rest. That night, I didn't go to the library. Instead, I stayed in my room, Bible hidden under my mattress, and I did something that terrified me more than anything I'd ever done. I prayed. But not to Allah. Jesus, I whispered into the darkness. My voice was shaking. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're real. I've been taught my whole life that praying to you is the worst sin I could commit. But I have nowhere else to go. Allah won't answer. I'm out of options. I'm out of time. Tears were streaming down my face. If you're real, if you really are who you said you are, if you really meant it when you said come to me, then I'm coming. I'm here. I believe. I want to believe. Please, please help me. Save me. Show me the truth. I can't do this alone anymore. I waited. Listening. Hoping. And then, I felt it. Not an audible voice. Not a vision. Just warmth. Like someone had wrapped invisible arms around me. Like I wasn't alone in my room anymore. Like after years of screaming into emptiness, someone was finally there. Peace settled over me like a blanket. Not the absence of fear, I was still terrified. But the presence of something stronger than fear. Someone stronger. I'm yours, I whispered. Whatever happens tomorrow. Whether I live or die. Whether I escape or not. I'm yours. I choose you. Jesus, I choose you. One day until my wedding. And everything was about to change. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Tomorrow, today, now that it was past midnight, I would be married to Sheikh Mohammed. The wedding was scheduled for 6 p.m. In less than 18 hours, my life as I knew it would end. I would become the fourth wife of a man who terrified me. Property with a marriage certificate. But something had shifted inside me. That prayer, that desperate, forbidden prayer to Jesus, had cracked something open in my chest. I felt different. Lighter somehow, despite the weight of what was coming. Like I'd been holding my breath for 21 years and had finally exhaled. I couldn't explain it. It made no logical sense. My circumstances hadn't changed. The wedding was still happening. My father was still a monster. Sheikh Mohammed was still waiting. But I felt held. Like invisible hands were cupping my face, telling me without words, you're not alone anymore. At 3 a.m., I got out of bed. I pulled the Bible from under my mattress and held it against my chest. I'd read so much over the past week, but there was still so much I didn't understand. Who was this Jesus really? Was I crazy for believing in him? Was I signing my own death warrant, not just physically, but eternally? What if Islam was right and I was committing the unforgivable sin? But then I remembered the silence. All those prayers to Allah that bounced off the ceiling and fell back on me like stones. All those years of rituals that left me emptier than when I started. And I remembered the bleeding woman. The Samaritan woman. The prostitutes and tax collectors and lepers. All the broken people who met Jesus and walked away healed. Free. Transformed. I wanted that. I wanted him. Jesus, I whispered, I need you. I need to know this is real. I need to know I'm not crazy. I need to see you. Please. If you're real, if you really hear me, if you really care about me, show me. Let me see you. Just once. Please. I lay back on my bed, still clutching the Bible. My eyes were burning with exhaustion, but I was too wired to sleep. Too afraid. Too desperate. I don't know when I finally drifted off. But when I did, I fell into a dream so vivid, so real, so utterly unlike any dream I'd ever had that even now, years later, I can recall every detail with perfect clarity. I was in the dungeon. I didn't know how I knew it was a dungeon. I'd never seen one before, but somehow I understood that's where I was. Stone walls. Chains. Darkness so thick it felt like a physical presence pressing against my skin. The smell of mold and blood and human suffering. I was sitting on the cold stone floor, my wrists in shackles attached to the wall. The metal had cut into my skin, and I could feel blood, warm and sticky, running down my hands. I was wearing my wedding dress, white silk with intricate gold embroidery, a dress that had cost a fortune. But here in this place, it was filthy, torn, soaked in my own blood and tears. I was completely alone. The darkness was so absolute that I couldn't see my own hands even though I could feel them trembling. And the silence, it was the silence of a tomb. Final. Hopeless. Like being buried alive. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to pull against the chains, but they held firm. I was trapped. Utterly trapped. And I understood, with dream logic that made perfect sense, that I would die here. That this dungeon was my future. My destiny. The inevitable end of a life lived in cages. Terror unlike anything I'd ever experienced consumed me. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. This was it. This was the end. Help me, I tried to whisper, but my voice was gone. Please. Someone. Anyone. Help me. And then, light. It started as a pinpoint in the distance, like a star in the darkness. But it was growing. Getting brighter. Moving closer. And as it approached, I could see that it wasn't just light, it was a person. A man. Walking toward me through the impossible darkness, carrying the light inside himself. No, he was the light. He came closer, and I could see his face. Middle Eastern features. Dark hair. Kind eyes, so impossibly kind that looking into them made my chest ache. He was wearing simple white robes that seemed to glow, not with reflected light, but with their own internal radiance. Like he was made of something other than flesh. Something more. And on his hands, oh God, his hands, I could see scars. Deep, circular scars in his wrists and palms. Scars that looked like they'd been made by nails. I knew who he was. Even though I'd never seen his face before. Even though it was impossible. I knew. Jesus, I breathed. This time my voice worked. You're real. He smiled, and that smile, I can't describe it. It was like watching the sun rise after the longest night of your life. Like hearing your name spoken in love for the first time. Like coming home to a place you didn't know existed. Aisha, he said. His voice was everything. Deep and gentle and strong and tender all at once. The sound of it made me want to weep. I've been waiting for you to call my name. I don't understand, I sobbed. Tears were pouring down my face. How are you here? Am I dead? Is this real? He knelt in front of me, bringing himself to my level. Eye to eye. And when he looked at me, truly looked at me, I felt seen in a way I'd never experienced. Like he could see every moment of my life, every secret thought, every hidden shame, every desperate prayer. And he loved me anyway. Not despite what he saw. Just loved me. Completely. Unconditionally. Impossibly. This is more real than anything you've ever experienced, he said. Do you see these chains? He gestured to the shackles on my wrists. I nodded, unable to speak. You've been in chains your whole life. Chains of religion without relationship. Chains of rules without love. Chains of fear disguised as faith. These chains, he touched the metal, and I felt warmth spread from his fingers. These chains were never my plan for you. Then why? My voice broke. Why was I born into this? Why have I suffered? Why did you wait so long to show yourself? His eyes filled with something that looked like pain. Oh, daughter. I didn't wait. I've been calling you since before you were born. But there were so many voices in the way. So many lies you'd been taught about me. So much fear. I had to wait until you were desperate enough to look past the lies. Until you were ready to hear the truth. Daughter. He called me daughter. I completely broke. Sobs tore out of me from a place so deep I didn't know it existed. I'm supposed to get married today, I gasped. To a monster. My father is selling me. And Allah, I choked on the name. Allah never answered. Never helped. I prayed and prayed and I know. Jesus's voice was so gentle it hurt. I know, beloved. I heard every prayer. I caught every tear. And I'm telling you now, that marriage will not happen. This is not your destiny. I have other plans for you. But how? My father is too powerful. There's no way out. I'm trapped. Look at the chains, he said. I looked down. The shackles were melting. Like ice under hot water. The metal was turning liquid, dripping off my wrists, falling to the stone floor where it evaporated into nothing. My wrists were free. The wounds were healing before my eyes, the blood disappearing, new skin forming smooth and unmarred. I stared at my hands in shock. How? Aisha, listen to me carefully. Jesus took my hands in his. His skin was warm. Real. And those scars, I could feel them under my fingers. Proof of nails. Proof of suffering. Proof of love that went all the way to death and came back. What I'm about to do will cost you everything. Your family will disown you. Your country will hunt you. You will lose your wealth, your status, your safety. People will call you traitor, apostate, infidel. You will be hated for my name. My breath caught. Then why? Why would you save me just to put me through that? His eyes held mine. Because you will also gain everything. You will gain freedom, true freedom that no chain can hold. You will gain purpose. You will tell your story and thousands will hear it and find me because of it. You will gain life, abundant life, eternal life, life that starts now and never ends. And you will gain me. Always. I will never leave you. Never forsake you. When everyone else abandons you, I will still be there. I'm afraid, I whispered. I know. But perfect love casts out fear. And daughter, his thumb brushed away my tears, I love you perfectly. You are mine. You were always mine. I formed you in your mother's womb. I numbered every hair on your head. I wrote your name in the palm of my hand long before you were born. And I went to a cross, he held up his scarred hands, to buy you back from every chain that ever held you. I was crying so hard I could barely see. What do I do? Tell me what to do. Trust me. When the moment comes tomorrow, today, you will know. You will feel my presence. And you will do something that seems impossible. Something only I can give you the strength to do. And when you do it, I will show everyone watching who I am. I will prove myself. Not just to you, but to everyone who doubts. To your father. To Sheikh Mohammed. To everyone. They'll kill me, I said. But strangely, the fear was fading. Being replaced by something else. Something that felt like courage. Steel wrapped in peace. Perhaps. Or perhaps I'll deliver you in a way that makes my power undeniable. Either way, whether through death or deliverance, you will be free. Do you trust me? Did I? Did I trust this man I'd only known for a week through words on forbidden pages? This Jesus who was promising to destroy my life to save my soul? I looked into his eyes, those impossibly kind, infinitely loving eyes, and I knew. With certainty that bypassed logic and landed straight in my spirit. Yes, I said. I trust you. He smiled. That sun-rising, name-speaking, coming-home smile. Then watch what I do. Watch what happens when heaven invades earth. When light invades darkness. When truth shatters lies. Watch, Aisha. And when they ask you how it happened, you tell them. He leaned forward and pressed his hand over my heart. Warmth flooded through me. Power. Peace. Presence. Tell them Jesus is alive. Tell them chains cannot hold what I have freed. Tell them the tomb couldn't keep me, and no prison can keep those who belong to me. Tell them, his voice was fierce now, full of authority that made the dungeon walls tremble. Tell them I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except through me. The light blazing from him grew brighter. So bright I had to close my eyes. I could feel him standing, could feel his presence still there, but the light was too much. Too glorious. Too holy. I love you, daughter, his voice echoed, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. Be brave. I am with you. Always. I woke up gasping. My room was dark. The clock said 5:47 a.m. The call to prayer would sound soon. My wedding day had officially begun. But I wasn't afraid. I sat up and looked at my hands. In the dream, they'd been scarred and then healed. Now they looked normal. But I could still feel where he'd touched them. Could still feel the warmth of his presence lingering in my chest like a coal that wouldn't go out. It was real. Not just a dream. Not my imagination. Not wishful thinking. Jesus had visited me. Spoken to me. Promised to deliver me. And somehow, impossibly, illogically, supernaturally, I believed him. I got out of bed and knelt on my prayer rug. But this time, I didn't face Mecca. I didn't recite memorized prayers in Arabic. I didn't perform ritual washing or worry about doing it right. I just talked. To him. To Jesus. Like he was right there in the room with me. Because somehow, I knew he was. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for seeing me. For loving me. For not giving up on me even when I didn't know your name. I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know how you're going to do this. But I trust you. I'm yours. Whatever the cost. Whatever happens. I'm yours." Peace settled over me. The same peace from the dream. Supernatural peace that made absolutely no sense given what I was about to face. I opened my eyes and saw the first light of dawn creeping through my window. My wedding day. The day I was supposed to become property. But Jesus had other plans. And in a few hours, everyone would see exactly what happens when the God of heaven decides to set a captive free. The palace was chaos from the moment the sun rose. Servants rushed through the corridors carrying flowers, setting up chairs in the grand ballroom, preparing food for 300 guests. My mother came to my room at 7 a.m. with the makeup artist and hairstylist, both women who had worked on royal weddings before. They chatted happily about how beautiful I was going to look, how blessed I was, how honored. I sat in silence while they worked on my face. Painting me. Preparing me. Making me beautiful for my cage. But inside I was burning with something that felt like liquid fire. The dream was still so vivid. Jesus' words echoed in my mind, "When the moment comes, you will know." "You're so quiet, Habibti," my mother said, worry creeping into her voice. "Are you feeling all right?" "Yes, Ummi," I lied. "I'm just thinking." "Don't think too much. It only makes things harder." Her voice was flat. Dead. The voice of a woman who'd stopped thinking decades ago because thinking meant feeling, and feeling meant pain. I looked at her in the mirror. Really looked at her. She was only 42, but she looked 60. The life had been drained out of her one disappointment, one beating, one silent dinner at a time. This was my future. This was what awaited me if I walked down that aisle. A living death disguised as marriage. Not anymore, I thought. Jesus, not anymore. By noon, the wedding dress arrived. It was exquisite, custom-made by a French designer, costing more than most people's houses. White silk with gold embroidery, encrusted with crystals that caught the light. A high neck. Long sleeves. Modest and suffocating and beautiful and horrible all at once. They helped me into it. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Everything in my life had been perfectly tailored. Perfectly controlled. Perfectly imprisoned. My mother started crying when she saw me. "You look like a queen," she whispered. "I look like a sacrifice," I said. She flinched. "Aisha, please. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "How hard does it have to be, Ummi? How much of myself do I have to kill to survive this?" She didn't answer. Just looked away, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. 4 p.m. 2 hours until the ceremony. I was alone in my room, fully dressed, waiting. The makeup was perfect. The hair was perfect. The dress was perfect. I looked like a princess from a fairy tale. I felt like a prisoner on death row. I walked to my window and looked out at the gardens below. Guests were already arriving, expensive cars pulling up to the palace entrance, men in thobes and women in designer abayas stepping out. The wealthy elite of Saudi Arabia, coming to witness another transaction. Another merger of power and money disguised as holy matrimony. I pressed my forehead against the glass. It was cool against my skin. "Jesus," I whispered. "I'm terrified. I believe you. I trust you. But I'm so scared. Please, please be with me. Show me what to do. Don't let me face this alone." And then, I felt it. That warmth from the dream. That presence. Like someone standing right behind me, hands on my shoulders, steadying me. And a voice, not audible, but somehow louder than audible, speaking directly into my spirit. "Take the Bible." My eyes flew open. The Bible. It was still hidden under my mattress where I'd kept it all week. "Take it with you. You will need it." "Are you insane?" I said out loud. "If I take a Bible to my wedding, they'll kill me before the ceremony even starts." "Trust me." That voice. That impossible, beautiful, terrifying voice. I went to my bed and pulled out the Bible. Held it in my hands. It was small, a compact version, maybe 6 inches by 4 inches. It would fit in the hidden pocket inside my wedding dress. The pocket where brides traditionally kept tissues or perfume. My hands were shaking as I slipped it inside. The weight of it against my ribs felt like carrying a bomb. One that could explode my entire life. "Good," the voice said. "Now go. Be brave, daughter. I am with you." 5:45 p.m. 15 minutes until the ceremony. I was standing in the bride's preparation room just off the main ballroom. Through the door, I could hear the guests, hundreds of voices, the sound of a string quartet playing traditional Arabic wedding music, the rustle of expensive fabric. My father came in. He was wearing his formal thobe, crisp white with gold embroidery, a sign of his royal status. He looked at me, and for a brief moment, something flickered in his dead eyes. Something that might have been regret. Or maybe just satisfaction at a deal well made. "You look acceptable," he said. High praise from him. "Baba," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. "I need to ask you something." His eyes narrowed. "What? Do you love me? Have you ever loved me?" The question hung in the air between us. He stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "Love is irrelevant," he finally said. "I have provided for you. protected you, secured your future. That is a father's duty. That's not what I asked. His jaw tightened. You are my daughter. You will honor this family. You will marry Sheikh Mohammed. You will be obedient. That is all that matters. And if I refuse? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. His hand moved so fast I didn't see it coming, his fingers wrapped around my throat, squeezing just hard enough to hurt, to threaten, to remind me who had the power. You will not refuse, he hissed, his face inches from mine. You will walk down that aisle. You will say the words. You will smile. Because if you don't, if you embarrass me, if you shame this family, I will kill you myself. Do you understand? I should have been terrified. A week ago, I would have been. But something had changed. Something was different. I looked into my father's eyes, those dead, empty eyes, and I felt pity. He was the one in chains. Not me. Not anymore. I understand, I said quietly. He released my throat and stepped back, smoothing his throat. Good. It's time. 6 p.m. The doors to the ballroom opened. The wedding march began, a classical Arabic melody played on oud and violin. Everyone stood. 300 faces turned to watch me. I stepped into the doorway, my father's hand gripping my elbow like a vice. The ballroom was magnificent, crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, silk drapes, candlelight. A fairy tale setting for a nightmare. And at the end of the long aisle, waiting at the altar with the imam, was Sheikh Mohammed al-Rashid. He was smiling. That predatory smile of a man who just acquired something valuable. His eyes traveled over me slowly, assessing his purchase. His other 3 wives sat in the front row, their faces blank, their eyes empty. That was my future. Right there. Death while breathing. When the moment comes, you will know. I started walking. 1 step. 2 steps. The Bible pressed against my ribs, burning like a coal. My father walked beside me, his grip iron, his message clear, you cannot escape. But with every step, I felt something building inside me. Power that wasn't mine. Courage I didn't possess. A voice that wasn't my voice preparing to speak words I'd never planned. We were halfway down the aisle when it happened. I stopped walking. My father's hand tightened. Move, he hissed under his breath. No, I said. Loud enough for the front rows to hear. The music continued for a few beats, then faltered. Stopped. Silence fell over the ballroom like a blanket. 300 people staring. Aisha, my father's voice was deadly quiet. Walk. Now. Instead, I pulled away from his grip. Turned to face the crowd. My heart was hammering, but my voice, when it came, was strong. Clear. Certain. I can't do this, I said. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's face went white. Sheikh Mohammed's smile vanished, replaced by fury. What did you say? My father's voice was a knife. I reached into the hidden pocket of my dress. Pulled out the Bible. Held it up for everyone to see. The reaction was immediate. Screams. Shouts. People jumping to their feet. My mother collapsed in her chair. The imam stumbled backward like I'd pulled out a weapon. Because I had. In this room, in this country, in this culture, this book was a weapon of mass destruction. I have been reading this, I said, my voice carrying across the ballroom. I was amazed at how steady it sounded. For the past week. And I have learned something. Something that changes everything. Stop speaking. My father lunged for me, but I danced backward, moving toward the center of the aisle where everyone could see. I have prayed to Allah my entire life, I continued, louder now. I have fasted. I have memorized the Quran. I have been faithful. And I was met with silence. Nothing but silence. But when I cried out to Jesus, silence her. Sheikh Muhammad was on his feet now, his face purple with rage. She is committing shirk. Blasphemy. She must be stopped. Security guards started moving toward me. My father was advancing, his hand reaching for me. I had seconds. Maybe less. Jesus appeared to me. I shouted. Last night. In a dream. He showed me who he really is. He told me he loves me. He told me I am free. And he told me to tell all of you. My father's hand caught my arm. His fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. You stupid, foolish girl. You've just signed your own death warrant. I know, I said. And I smiled. Actually smiled. But I'd rather die free in Christ than live as a slave to fear. He raised his hand to strike me. I closed my eyes, waiting for the blow. It never came. Instead, I heard gasps. Screams. My father's hand released my arm. I opened my eyes. The Bible in my hand was glowing. Not metaphorically. Actually, physically glowing. Soft white light was emanating from the pages, growing brighter with every second. The light was warm, I could feel it against my skin, but it wasn't burning me. It was beautiful. Impossible. Undeniable. What sorcery is this? The imam shouted, backing away further. Not sorcery, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. It's Jesus. He's here. He's proving himself. Just like he promised. My father tried to grab the Bible from my hands. The moment his fingers touched it, he cried out and yanked his hand back. His palm was red, not burned, but like he'd touched something too pure for him to hold. Sheikh Muhammad was backing toward the exit, his face twisted in fear. This is demonic. She is possessed. We must. Look at her, someone shouted from the crowd. I didn't see who. Look at the bride. I looked down at myself. The light from the Bible was spreading. It was covering my dress, my hands, my arms. I was glowing. Like I was made of light. Like Jesus in my dream. And I felt it, his presence, so powerful, so tangible that everyone in the room must have felt it too. The air was charged with something electric. Something holy. Something that made every lie shiver and every truth ring like a bell. Jesus Christ is Lord, I said. My voice echoed impossibly loud in the ballroom. Not my voice anymore. His voice. Speaking through me. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the light of the world. And no darkness, no religion, no tradition, no threat, no death, can overcome his light. The light blazed brighter. Some people were crying. Others were on their knees. My father had fallen backward, staring at me in horror. And my mother, my broken, defeated mother, was staring with something that looked almost like hope. I choose Jesus, I declared. Today. Right now. In front of all of you. I reject this marriage. I reject the chains. I reject the lies. I am a daughter of the living God. And no man can take that from me. And then, the most impossible thing of all. The chains that had decorated the ballroom, ornamental gold chains draped as part of the wedding decor, began to break. One by one, they snapped apart and fell to the ground with sounds like thunder. Link after link after link, breaking and falling. Someone screamed, "It's a sign. A sign from God." "It's judgment," another voice shouted. "Judgment on this house." The doors to the ballroom flew open. Not by human hands. Just open. Wind rushed in, warm, sweet wind that smelled like flowers and freedom. The candles all blew out at once, but we weren't in darkness. Because I was still glowing. The Bible was still blazing with light. And in that moment, I heard his voice. Not in my head. Out loud. Audible. A voice like rushing water and rolling thunder and gentle whisper all at once. My daughter is free. And whoever I set free is free indeed. I don't remember running. But suddenly I was at the doors. My dress was heavy, my shoes were falling off, but I was running. Down the corridor. Through the palace. Toward the entrance. Toward the outside. Behind me, I could hear chaos. Shouting. My father's voice roaring my name. Security guards' boots on marble. But I was faster. Propelled by something beyond adrenaline. By power that wasn't mine. I burst through the front doors of the palace into the evening air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in oranges and purples. I ran across the circular driveway, past the expensive cars, past the shocked drivers and guests who had stepped outside. I ran toward the gates. The massive iron gates that had kept me trapped my entire life. They should have been closed. Should have been locked. Should have been guarded. But they were open. Standing wide open like arms waiting to embrace me. I ran through them. Out of the palace grounds. Out of my prison. Into the street beyond. I was free. Against all odds. Against all logic. Against every law of my world. Jesus had kept his promise. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't know how I would survive. Didn't know what came next. But I was free. And somewhere in the gathering darkness, I felt his presence beside me, whispering, "Well done, my brave daughter. Now comes the hard part. Are you ready?" I ran until my legs gave out. I don't know how far I made it, maybe 2 kilometers, maybe more. The wedding dress was destroying me, the heavy silk dragging on the pavement, the crystals catching on everything. My feet were bleeding. I'd lost my shoes somewhere between the palace gates and the first intersection. The sun had set completely, and Riyadh's streets were coming alive with evening traffic. I finally collapsed in an alley between two buildings, gasping for air, my whole body shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, and reality was crashing in like a tsunami. What had I just done? I had committed apostasy in front of 300 witnesses. I had humiliated my father, a prince, at a royal wedding. I had rejected a powerful sheikh. I had declared myself a Christian in Saudi Arabia, where that confession could mean execution. I was the most wanted person in the kingdom right now. And I had nowhere to go. Jesus, I whispered between sobs. Jesus, I did it. I trusted you. I took the leap. Now what? What do I do now? I waited, listening for that voice. That presence. But all I heard was the distant sound of traffic and my own ragged breathing. Panic started to set in. Was it all a hallucination? Had I just destroyed my life based on a dream and some feelings? What if? No. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling the Bible still tucked in the hidden pocket. The glow had faded, but the book was still there. Still real. What happened in that ballroom was real. 300 people saw it. My father felt it when he tried to touch the Bible. The chains broke. The doors opened. That was real. Jesus was real. Which meant his promise was real too. I will never leave you. Never forsake you. Okay, I said out loud, trying to steady my breathing. Okay. You're with me. You're here. I'm not alone. What's next? Show me what's next. I heard footsteps at the mouth of the alley. My blood went cold. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to become invisible in my glowing white wedding dress. Brilliant disguise, Aisha. A figure appeared, silhouetted against the streetlight. Female. Wearing an abaya and hijab. She took a few steps into the alley, looking around. Are you the girl from the palace? She called out. Her voice was young. Nervous. I didn't answer. This could be a trap. My father had resources everywhere. I was there, she continued. At the wedding. I'm a servant. I saw what happened. I saw the light. I saw the Bible glowing. I saw you run. She took another step closer. My name is Reem. And I think I've been waiting my whole life to see what I saw tonight. Something in her voice made me trust her. Or maybe it was desperation. Or maybe it was Jesus whispering, this one is safe. I'm here, I said, stepping out of the shadows. She gasped when she saw me, covered in dirt, bleeding, my expensive wedding dress destroyed, but still somehow here. Still alive. You're real, she breathed. I thought maybe I imagined it. Maybe we all imagined it. But you're real. Unfortunately, I said with a bitter laugh. Very real. And very hunted. You should go. If anyone sees you helping me. I know the risk. She moved closer, pulling off her outer abaya. Here. Put this on over your dress. It won't hide you completely, but it's better than running around in a wedding gown. I took it with shaking hands. Why are you helping me? She met my eyes, and I saw tears there. Because I've been praying. For years. Praying to Allah for something real. Something more than rituals. And tonight, I saw it. I felt it. That presence in the ballroom, it was like the air itself was holy. And you. She reached out and touched my arm tentatively. You were brave. You said what I've been afraid to even think. So if Jesus is real, if what happened tonight was real, then I want to know him too. My heart cracked open. He's real, Reem. He's so real. And he hears you. He's been waiting for you to call his name. She wiped her eyes. We don't have time for this now. Your father's men are searching everywhere. They have your picture on their phones, before the wedding, all made up. They're checking every street, every building. You need to get out of Riyadh. Tonight. How? I have no money. No phone. No passport. No. I know someone. She looked around nervously. A man. He helps people like you. People who are running. People who converted. He's Christian, Egyptian, I think. He has connections, safe houses. If we can get to him, he can get you out of the country. Why would he help me? Because that's what Christians do, isn't it? She smiled slightly. At least, that's what I've heard. They help the persecuted. Even when it costs them. It was true. I'd read about it in the book of Acts. The early Christians hiding each other, protecting each other, dying for each other. Not because they had to. Because love made them. Jesus, I don't have this all figured out. But I believe you're real. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose from the dead. And I believe you love me. I'm sorry for living my life without you. For trying to do everything on my own. For ignoring you. Forgive me. Save me. Come into my life. Make me yours. I'm giving you everything, my past, my present, my future. All of it. I'm yours. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for this new life. Teach me how to live it. In your name, Jesus. Amen. That's it. That's the prayer that changes everything. Not because the words are magic, but because they represent a heart turning toward God. A life surrendering to the one who made it. A soul finally coming home. If you prayed that prayer, if you just gave your life to Jesus, welcome to the family, my brother, my sister. You just made the most important decision of your entire existence. Angels are celebrating right now. Heaven is rejoicing. And you have just stepped into a life that will be harder and more beautiful than anything you can imagine. Here's what you need to do next. First, tell someone. Jesus said if we confess him before men, he'll confess us before the Father. Don't keep this secret. Find a Christian friend, a pastor, someone you trust. Tell them, I just gave my life to Jesus. They'll help you, guide you, celebrate with you. Second, get a Bible. Start reading. I recommend starting with the Gospel of John. That's where I started. Let Jesus introduce himself to you through his own words. Third, find a church. A real, Bible-believing church where people love Jesus and love each other. You need community. You can't do this alone. None of us can. Fourth, pray. Every day. Just talk to Jesus like he's right there with you, because he is. Tell him your fears, your questions, your joys, your struggles. He wants relationship with you, not religious performance. Fifth, be baptized. When you're ready, make a public declaration of your faith through baptism. It's not what saves you, Jesus already did that. But it's how you tell the world, I belong to him now. And if you're watching this from Saudi Arabia or another country where converting to Christianity could cost you your life, I see you. I know the fear you're feeling. I know the impossible choice you're facing. I won't lie to you. Following Jesus might cost you everything. Your family. Your safety. Your life. It cost me all of that. But Jesus is worth it. He's worth every loss. Every tear. Every sacrifice. Because what you gain in him is infinitely greater than what you lose for him. There are people who will help you. Underground churches. Networks of believers who help people escape persecution. If you need help, search carefully, pray for wisdom, and reach out. We're out here. And we won't abandon you. Be smart. Be careful. But be brave. Jesus said, "Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul." Your life is more than these few decades on earth. Eternity is real. And where you spend it matters. Choose Jesus. Choose life. Choose freedom. Even if it costs everything in this world, it will be worth it in the next. I'm going to end this video now. But before I do, I want you to see something. I hold up my wrists to the camera, showing the scars that are still there from that dream, thin, white lines where the shackles cut me. These scars are real. They appeared after the dream where Jesus freed me from the chains. I can't explain it medically. But they're here. Physical proof of a supernatural encounter. And they remind me every single day, I was a slave, and now I'm free. I was lost, and now I'm found. I was dead, and now I'm alive. That's what Jesus does. He takes the broken and makes them whole. He takes the captive and sets them free. He takes the dead and brings them to life. That's his specialty. That's his joy. That's who he is. And he wants to do the same for you. Don't wait. Don't put this off. Tomorrow might be too late. Today is the day of salvation. Right now is the acceptable time. Jesus is standing at the door.